right, we're on, says Cece. Good morning and welcome to Java with Jerry. It is Wednesday, November 14th. Happy birthday, Cherry. That's one of our shareholders who's celebrating her birthday today. Our firm is full of November birthdays, but it's Cherry's today, so happy birthday. Welcome to all of you. We're glad you joined us. As always, we come to you from the penthouse suite of Stadium Towers here in the Platinum Triangle in Anaheim, California, where we were dark last week, hoping that we would have really complete election news. When you report the day after the election, there's always still counting going on in very close races, and you never know about what's going to happen in those races. So we thought, well, if we wait a week, we'll have really complete news. Well, there you go. Best laid plans of mice and men. We'll be talking a lot about the election, but as you know, there's a lot still up in the air. We will do a little bit about the news, not all good, I'm afraid. And then we will have our feature of the day, a millennial word for you boomers to learn that somehow or another we try to thematically tie to our show. So we're glad you're here. For those of you who are watching on Orange Slice, thank you for doing that, or listening on Podbean. We appreciate you going to orangeslice.com and signing up where you can pick up your podcast and listen to it whenever it's convenient for you. So let's get to it. Let's talk a little bit about national news first. And the national news, we're going to focus on the midterm elections. Obviously, no bigger story in the country than what happened on November 6th and that we're still counting on. And so on a national level, it appears clear that the Republicans have picked up a seat or two in the Senate. How many, we're not sure, because they're still counting votes in Florida, of all places, of course. And it appears that the president has definitely lost the House of Representatives, and that is a big thing for him. Not astonishing that happened. The president usually loses seats in the House and often in the Senate during the midterms, so that's not an astonishing thing. There are some astonishing things that came out of this election, but losing seats in the House is not one of them. I think all pundits expected that to happen. You can be astonished that the president, loathed as he is in many places, in a year where Democrats were as motivated as you could possibly get them, and where all of their voters came to vote, alive or dead, legal or illegal, you can be astonished that they only lost the House by a small margin, and that it was much less than previous presidents in recent years. He should have had a devastating loss, but did not. You can be astonished that so many women, 100 of them, thank goodness, were elected. That's a good thing for the body politic and a good thing for Congress, I think. More will get done when women are present. You can be astonished that they are largely leftists, and probably as leftist as you can get, but you can't be astonished that the Republicans lost the House. You can also be astonished that Republicans lost in what were real strongholds, where they flipped a lot of seats red to blue, thanks to a crush of billionaire dollars from people like Tom Steyer and George Soros and others, and by some very clever and well thought out campaigning and some hard hitting by the Democrats. They picked a topic where the Republicans had dropped the ball, and we'll talk a little bit about that, and they hammered it and they won. You can be even more astonished, if not weary, by the fact that you're going to get back Speaker Nancy Pelosi, the gift that keeps on giving. But she'll be back. I don't know for how long, because she's got a really hardcore left caucus now, and they think of her as yesterday's news. But I think she's wily enough and clever enough to make sure she herds her cats and gets the vote and will become the speaker, at least for a while. So lots of things are astonishing in all of this, but one of the things that is the most astonishing to me, that I find most astonishing, is that the two counties in Florida that caused all the hubbub in 2000 during the presidential election when Bush ran against Gore, Broward and Palm Beach, are back in the center of the news again. This time not over the hanging Chad fiascos, they're over hanging Chads in Florida, but they're back because of electoral dysfunction. How those electoral offices are still messed up is beyond me. Clearly, they are finding boxes of ballots long after the ballots were supposed to be counted and certified. As election dysfunction goes, those two leaders in Broward and Palm Beach County are either negligent, incompetent, or just flat out corrupt. I'm not certain, but I'm certain that the FBI will be dispatched down there to look into it, and I know that when all this settles out, the leaders in Florida will take a look at those two counties for sure. When tens of thousands of ballots all of a sudden show up after voting is closed, there's something that smells in Denmark, and so they need to look at that. One of the astonishing things, or lack of astonishing things, depending on how you look at it, is where votes are still being counted across the country. Some things are incredibly clear, even if the votes are being counted. For instance, it's clear that voters will sometimes do the unexpected and undeniably confusing. What do I mean by that? And that happened in a lot of places, but let's use California, my home state, as an example. For example, you often hear criticism from Californians, a ton of it, that California is overregulated and certainly overtaxed, right? Lots of complaints about the fact that we are overtaxed in California, and we certainly have very, very high taxes, the highest income tax, one of the highest sales taxes. The only thing that we really protect, thanks to the 1978 Prop 13 provisions, is the property taxes, where we are probably undertaxed on property. And we certainly have a housing crisis notwithstanding that. But one of the things you can be astonished about is that California decided not to save themselves a bunch of tax at the gas pump and resoundingly defeated a repeal of the gas tax, which will raise their gas in the initial instance 12 cents a gallon. And then who knows in future years, because there's a provision in the law that was passed that allows the legislature to just raise it as they need to. But they also tax themselves a bunch. They swipe the credit card on a bunch of bonds. They tax themselves at the local level on sales tax in virtually every jurisdiction that presented it, with the exception of Laguna Beach. And they just tax themselves and tax themselves to death. That, added to the fact that they gave the Democrat Party a 2/3 majority in both houses, both in the Assembly and the legislature, which allows them now to raise taxes, fees, and regulations without nary a single Republican vote. The Republicans actually can all go on vacation to Cancun and just phone it in, because there's no need for them in Sacramento. And Californians did that to themselves at a time when they were complaining about the state of taxes. And you can wonder why the voters agreed to swipe the credit card in a state that's got trillions of dollars of debt for billions of dollars more in borrowing. But borrowing, as crazy as it is, and with the choking interest that it leaves our children, seems to be the flavor of the day. Simply put, California hurled itself further to the left, and unabashedly so. They have soundly rejected virtually every Republican in office. Indeed, in places like Orange County, my home county, once a place historically deeply red, there are possibilities that we will have, are you ready for this? Not a single member of Congress. There are 7 seats that are really wholly contained in Orange County, or touch a portion of Orange County and are shared with other counties like the Inland Empire and Los Angeles. And of those 7 seats, there are only 2 Republicans that are hanging on. One, an incumbent, Mimi Walters, who has now fallen behind to Katie Porter in her own home district, one that has been red for as long as I can recall, certainly since I got to the county decades ago. And now she is behind to Democrat Katie Porter, and maybe irretrievably so, with hundreds of thousands of ballots yet to count. And we all know late ballots favor Democrats. And the other, a race where young Kim is hanging on to a very narrow lead, I think under 1,000 votes now. That's a district that is largely Orange County, but shares some LA County precincts, and the counting in LA County will go on, and that favors Democrats more largely than does the Orange County votes. And it's likely that young Kim could fall behind to newcomer Gil Cisneros, who is a lottery-winning millionaire who decided to become a politician with his millions, and threw $8 million of his own money into that race. Obscene spending in that race, but he may have purchased himself a seat in Congress. And so many in Orange County find it unthinkable. But we could end up at the end of the day with 7 congressional seats in Orange County, or touching Orange County, none of them held by Republicans. None of them, which would be an astonishing thing to be astonished about. So what does all that say? What does it say about our economy? What's it say about what our voters think of it? What's it say about health care and what voters want to do with it? Because clearly health care, pardon me, was the issue that the Democrats seized on and used in all of these races. What's it say about how they understood the questions presented to them? Did they really understand what Proposition 6, the gas tax, was about? And there are competing theories as to why all of this happened, right? One thing is clear. Republicans dropped the ball on health care in a big way. They promised in previous elections that if they got control of the Congress, they would, and they had control of both House and Senate, remember, for a long time, they would repeal and replace. They went to go do that, and they failed. They couldn't even get what was called the skinny repeal, which repealed some of the most noxious provisions and kept some things that would protect Americans like pre-existing conditions. And they failed on all those fronts, and the Democrats seized on it, and they ran on health care, while the Republicans ran on immigration. You read into that what you want. Here's some competing theories about why all of this happened. Some say that former Senator, now deceased John McCain, doomed the Republicans in the House. When John McCain famously went to the well of the Congress and turned thumbs down on the skinny repeal, they say that gave the subject that the Democrats needed to run on to the Democrats, and they ran on it and ran explicitly well, and they have done well. Some say Republicans are too strident, too conservative, and too far right for the new moderate electorate, and that's the problem. Others say Republicans are not conservative enough, that they're too pastel, too much like Democrats, too indistinguishable from Democrats to have a reason for people to vote for Republicans. So there's two 180 degrees separated views. Sorry, all of this chokes me up. And too many Americans, they say, yet another theory, are on the dole. When you go beyond 50% of the people receiving government benefits, they will vote for the party that gives them those benefits. Whatever the reason, pick whatever you think fits your view. In some ways, it really doesn't matter, because in the absence of something cataclysmic happening, or something happening in the state of California that is inexplicable, pardon me, the U-Hauls will be outbound. The price of using a U-Haul in California is extraordinarily high if you're leaving the state, and you can almost get them for free coming into the state. That's how many people in the middle class are leaving. So I don't know what it all means. We're still sorting out races. We still don't know what's happening in those two congressional races. So stay tuned. We thought if we waited a week and we talked about it now, we'd have answers for you. But as you can see, we have more questions than answers, including why is it no matter how drugged up I am, I can't get rid of that cough. All right, let's talk about state stories other than the national story on the election, some of which is really a state story as well, and talk about tragedy in California. You have to have been living under a rock not to know that California is ablaze, particularly deadly in the Camp Fire north of Sacramento in Butte County, in a town that has now been all but lost. There's a saying that William Pierce Leonard in 1864 saw the town of Paradise and said, "Boys, this is paradise," and that's how it got its name. Well, Paradise, unfortunately, has now been almost virtually destroyed. Its mayor says, the mayor is Jody Jones, it says as much as 90% of her city's homes have been wiped out. 90%, some more than 7,200 structures, most of them houses, have been destroyed. 117,000 acres. It's only 30% contained as of Monday, and 48 people have lost their lives there, but equally as importantly, hundreds are missing. They don't know where. And hopefully no more people lose their lives. But that blaze is going on, and so is Southern California ablaze in a fire that is taking place in LA County and Ventura County, now 47% contained. That fire has charged some 97,000 acres, caused 2 deaths, virtually wiped out very, very expensive homes in Malibu. And a lot of it is being blamed on a lot of different people for a lot of different reasons. There are certainly plenty of blame to go around, but not blame on the fire authorities, who are doing the best they can with depleted resources, with as many people on the front lines as they can. Those heroes are trying to save lives, save structures. California is a fire. It's not a good thing. So we pray for all the people who have lost their lives and for their families, and for those who are still missing. We hope you're found and found well and not lost and gone from us. And we pray for all the firefighters and their families who are on the line. Some of them are losing their homes while they're fighting to save homes for others. And so it's a terrible story, and not one we're happy to report about. Hopefully by next week it will be gone, as will the winds. Let's talk about a local story real quickly, and that is the local story of elections here in Orange County, particularly in Anaheim. Most of you know that Anaheim has had a pitched battle between the existing council and the business community, and that the business community went all out trying to support candidates that they thought would be more business friendly, more pro-development, would be less likely to regulate and to harm business. And in a pitched fight between them and the unions on both ballot measures and election seats for city council, it appears that business interests have done quite well. Harry Sidhu defeated Ashley Aiken and will be the new mayor of Anaheim. He's much more business friendly than the existing Tom Tate. The seats that were available to all of the council, some in areas where it had been districted and voted on for the first time, others where districts had voted before. The pro-business candidates did much better. Jordan Bradman was elected over James Vanderbilt, an existing incumbent who had been part of the Tate majority. Mitch Caldwell did not win the seat against Jose Moreno, who is the mayor pro tem and remains in office. But Trevor O'Neill won in the 6th district, where Chris Murray is termed out and leaving the council, and he will take that seat in the 6th district and join others on the council to form a majority. So there is a new majority, 5-2 majority that seems to be pro-business. In two measures that helped existing hotel contracts that the city had with hoteliers, J and K, both of those passed. So when people say the citizens of Anaheim are against some kind of incentive to hotels in order to bring in needed hotels for a very resort-friendly town, I think they're wrong. J and K proves that's the case. And those who opposed the raising of the minimum wage, which was antithetical to business interests and could harm people who are among the working poor, narrowly lost that race. I think they're about 3 points behind. I don't think that gap can be overcome. And so I think you're going to find that Measure L is one that will not survive, and the minimum wage will raise come January of 2019. That will have large implications for a lot of businesses, not so many large, but certainly a number small, and some medium-sized businesses as well. And you'll see reduced hours and probably some layoffs and less expansion of business. That's not a good thing. And that is supposed to click to $18 on January 1st of next year, and then it goes up $1 a year until 2022, at which point it then goes on autopilot based on cost of living or a minimum floor, I think, of 2%. In any event, it is not a good thing for Anaheim business, so a little bit of a mixed bag there, but certainly a large win for the city of Anaheim. In other places locally in Orange County, as I said in my earlier comments when I was talking about Californians taxing themselves, in virtually every place with the exception of Laguna Beach, which is an interesting case I'll get to in a second, they voted for an increase in taxes, including $0.015 in sales tax increase in Santa Ana, the second largest city, in a place where that's a regressive tax for people who have to buy life's necessities. They added another $0.015 to the tax in Santa Ana, making it really difficult on Santa Ana citizens if to buy there. So all of you people in Santa Ana that want to avoid that $0.015 sales tax increase, you can just drive a little bit east to Tustin. We have great stores. You're welcome to come shop and buy all of your necessities there. It'll be $0.015 cheaper. Thank you to all of you who come to Tustin to do your shopping. And thank you, Santa Ana, for sending us all your shoppers. Anyway, that all went on in a lot of different cities. Many of them needed for public safety, they say. Some others claim needed because they are behind on their public pensions. But they were rejected in Laguna Beach, where it had a dedicated reason for the sales tax. It wasn't going to be just for the general fund like all these others that passed. It was going to be to bury utility wires. You would have thought that was at least something that could be watched by the voters to make sure that it was spent correctly in the right place. And that's the one that lost. So when I say astonishing things happen when California voters vote, there's one for you. All right, there will be a lot more to talk about with the elections, to be sure. You know there are lawsuits down in Florida. You know that we will have a new Congress. We'll probably talk about what they will do. It sounds like it's going to be Investigate-A-Rama. The latest is that all the incoming chairs have already picked out the things they do. So let's see. Jerry Nadler, who is now going to be head of the Judiciary Committee, wants to investigate 80 or 85 different things that Donald Trump has done. That'll be productive. Maxine Waters, who has been screaming impeach 45 alive since the man was sworn into office on the steps of the Capitol, will be undoubtedly going after that. And she's already announced, because she will be the new chair of financial services at Deutsche Bank and Wells Fargo. You look out. Maxine's coming for you. She's going to investigate you for doing something, and I guarantee it ain't going to be good. And what's the net of that? You've been watching the market since election night just plummet, just skyrocket down. Your 401k has taken a real beating. Now, some say that bubble was due. We needed a correction. We've been in a bull market for a long time. But trust me, when people who are investors saw that the Democrats were back in power in Congress, they went, well, there goes any extension of a middle-class tax cut. There goes any chance to stem any more regulation. There goes any chance to stop nonsense. And if nothing else, we're going to get gridlock government, and they don't like it in Washington, D.C., and certainly they don't like it on Wall Street. So we'll see what happens. More to talk about. We'll talk about more of it, I'm sure, in future episodes. All right. Got to stop this coughing. It is rivalry week. Cece's telling me I'm running out of time. So here's your sports story. It is rivalry week, and hence you see me adorned in blue and gold, because this is the week when all Bruins and Trojans hunker down in their bunkers and get ready for the big war. That happens this Saturday. Yeah, I know. Both schools suck this year. By the way, you can't spell suck, the word suck, without the letters USC. But notwithstanding how bad they both are, and that they're not at the top of their games, for Bruins and Trojans all over California, it is a major week for us. We're fighting for the victory bell, and damn it, we want that victory bell back, Trojans. So go Bruins, beat SC. We are going to look forward to Saturday, regardless of how our teams are doing. All right, that brings us to our millennial word of the day. I wanted a millennial word, and I asked staff here to find me one that somehow reflected what we were going to talk about. And with all the stuff going on in Broward and Palm Beach County, all the ballots showing up, all the people claiming there's voter fraud, and trust me, there may be some voter fraud, but that's not really what happened in this election. There was a blue wave brought on, some say by hatred of Trump, others by the issue of health care, and others that were motivated by millions of dollars spent by lots of interest. But whatever the reason is, whenever we get to voting and counting votes, and people start losing races and they flip around, everybody becomes, are you ready? Listen to this now, boomers. Here's your millennial word. Everybody becomes sus. S-U-S. Sus. Which is short for suspicious or suspect. It means to suggest that someone believes that something shady or false is going on. So all of you watching Broward and Palm Beach County and think that the election officials down there are sneaking in Democrat votes to hurt Scott and the DeSantis campaign, Scott for Senate and DeSantis for governor, you may be sus. There's your millennial word of the day. Use it wisely. All right. I'm going to go treat my cough. I hope you have a good week. We will be back next Wednesday with more show for you. We love it when you come to Java with Jerry. We may talk a little bit more about these election results. Maybe we'll have something definitive by then. I don't know. I'm sus. In the meantime, have a great week. Make good decisions. And we'll see you next week right here on Java with Jerry.